Hey everybody, welcome to ComicPOP Nights. That's right, we changed the name, and by we I mean I changed the name. Um, we originally called it, I don't remember, ComicPOP After Dark, and I was playing around with some thumbnail settings. I was just getting it ready to go. I would have started 15 minutes ago, but I really liked the idea of changing the name and changing the aesthetic. So hopefully you like the thumbnail. Not like it matters because we keep these things unlisted, so you won't be seeing these after the fact, at least not for a while. Um, this is kind of just us hanging out. Keeps it exclusive, makes it like you're part of a nightclub that is just one guy talking at you and answering your questions. So, yeah, welcome to Comic Pop Nights. It's Saturday night slash Sunday morning, midnight. We're still under quarantine, so I'm not hanging out with anybody right now. Normally, my Saturday nights would be full of hanging out with everybody that you normally see on the channel, but instead, everyone's kind of at home, so am I. And I thought, I haven't had one of these in a while, so why not check in? Hope all's doing well. How are you? What's going on? I'll check in with a couple of updates really quick. I asked a bunch of you guys over on the community tab for this video. I was like, hey, how come the views are weird? The last 2 weeks or so, views have been a little low. Not on Contagion, surprisingly enough. Contagion's doing better than I expected. But everything else, the Jim Zub interview, even the McFarlane interview, not as big as I'd expect. And a lot of you guys were incredibly helpful enough to let me know that apparently it's finals week. So I thought I'd also spend this time to say, hey, hope you all did well on your finals, everybody. I remember finals week, and I remember not sweating it too much. But most of the time it's because I didn't really care about grades, which really reflected in my grades. But you should, and I always gave it at least a good 85%, if not higher. You should strive for 100, but back in the day, I definitely did not try as hard as I probably should have. I will say I didn't have too many great studying partners or role models, but yeah. So the views were a little weird, so I thought, hey, maybe I'll ask. But apparently, since it was finals week, might have accounted for it. I also noticed that, the creator interviews don't really do as well as all that. It's part of the reason why we retired the old show. When we first started, pretty much within our first year, we launched a show called Big Shots. And number one, we had a hard time getting comic book creators to come on the show. And number two, people didn't care one way or the other. Most of the time, they'd rather just hear us talk about what we like to see in comics, which is way easier to accomplish than coordinating other people's schedules and convincing people who actually produce something to come on one of our shows. That being said, the amount of kindness and generosity that we've been extended by members of the comic book creator community has been overwhelmingly positive, and we're so grateful and so thankful for them and for their time and for their insights. Huge thank you to all of them. In most recently, Jim Zub, who was kind enough to come on the show and follow up. We've been in talks about having him come back, but if it doesn't do very well, we'll have to come up with another way to go with it. So let's jump into it. A few of you had some questions. Red Samurai, for example. Have you read Arabian Nights? Just discovered it and loved it. I think you might really dig the story of the Enchanted King. I don't think so. If you're talking about like the actual Arabian Nights, like in story, like like the book, no. But if you're talking about Emerald Nights, I'm very much familiar with that. But no. But I'll do a little more research. Thank you. The Happy Masquerader says, hey Sal, I got a kick out of your brief Twitter exchange with Tom King over Superman recently. Future Elseworlds interview? Been digging those. Me too, man. Let me tell you something, Happy Masquerader. I did not expect King to weigh in. I really appreciated his comment. It was hilarious. My response was equally appreciated by him, apparently. And so that was fun. It was a fun little exchange. I would love to have him on the show because while I have gone on record kind of really being critical of some of his work, particularly his Batman work, obviously there are more things that I dig than not. And we did send a invitation to join us through one of his talent representatives, not to him directly. Um, Other people are less available, and so you have to try different things. And we've reached out to different people in that regard. I reached out to Hickman through Twitter, no dice, didn't respond. Tomasi, same deal, no dice, didn't respond. It's usually if they have an agent or representative, it's easier to get in touch with them. Although King and a number of other incredibly prominent creators that we've been wanting to get on the show are kind of represented by one agency, and I'm waiting to hear back from that agency to let me know all of the no's that we're going to get. Artist FKA Red, ooh, shirt, only I didn't say shirt. I don't know what that means, but thank you, man. CB3. Where'd you go? CB3 says, love your guys' work. Have you ever watched the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon? I sure did, CB3. I was a big fan of that show. I remember when it launched, and I remember the New York Comic Con when they had a booth and they were showing the show, the pilot, on a loop outside their booth. And I remember hearing that theme and being like, this is gonna be bad. And then I watched it and was like, oh my god, it's amazing. And every episode was a treat. It was the Justice League Unlimited of the Marvel Universe. And it is a damn shame that it did not continue. It is even more sad that it didn't continue because they canceled it in favor of something else. Not that it wasn't doing well, not that it needed to be canceled by the network. It was because they wanted to replace it with a more movie accurate, marketable show. So it was a real stab in the heart. I hate that they killed that show. Love that show. I think it should be the template for their non-existent animated direct market cinematic universe. Because of course, right? You get a chance to tell distilled, enduring, classic Stan Lee, Kurt Busiek, Greg Pak, everybody. Like, you could literally tell every story through that venue, and they just screwed it up. It's a real shame, but I am a big fan. Thank you. Jordan Metviner says, how do you think meeting comic creators and going to comic conventions will change? I think that it won't. I think that the online con will be a thing for a little while, but when we get out of this, we will go back to business as usual. I think that there's more likelihood that they're going to kill off some of those smaller shows. I think that some of those smaller shows really depended on the consistent revenue stream, and without it, you're going to see that go the same way as any other business that only really manages to stay afloat day to day, week to week, month to month. So smaller shows, I think, will go away. I think the mid-tier show, it'll be less likely that you're going to have like 3 mid-tier shows a year, and more likely that you'll have the big shows, San Diego, C2E2, New York Comic Con, and you're going to have the mid-tier shows. I think of East Coast Comic Con, for example. It's a fairly large show in a entire area, like it's an incomplete convention center with top tier creators and merchants, and yet it's not the biggest thing ever. I think instead of you having 2 or 3 of those a year in your hometown or within your driving distance, you're going to see those condense. And I don't know if they're going to be working together. I think it's being more like, I can't support it. So I think that overall, for a lot of people, because while those conventions are highly trafficked, I don't think that they are nearly as popular among the general populace as they are with the hardcore fans. It just so happens that, there are a lot of people, so a percentage of that people are willing to dress up, get in a car, spend money, get a hotel, and go out to these shows. But I think that as far as the general public's concerned, they'll be virtually no different situation. But I think that as far as we're concerned, we're going to see fewer smaller shows. I think we're going to see the rise and subsequent crash of the online convention, because they're hard to finagle. And ultimately, I think that while they're fun and while they're a good distraction, they are not a good substitute for the convention experience. So I think people will eventually, when you can have the option of going to a convention, they're going to take it, and that'll be that. But good question, Jordan. Thank you. Igor Ruzhin says, thanks for all the content. Wish me luck on my LSATs. Good luck, Igor. Thank you so much for your super chat and for hanging out with us, and of course for watching us. Good luck, man. The LSATs are, if you study and you know your stuff, I'm sure you're going to be fine. Don't sweat it, but don't slack. You know what I mean? Do your best. And of course, if they're not tomorrow, study. But good luck, man. Scoro says, glad to see this show pop up as I just got off work. I was going to watch Red Letter Media, which got into thanks to you guys, but this is just as good. Thank you, Scoro. That is a high compliment. I do appreciate it, man. I don't know. Did RLM have a new video? Because if it is, I'm going to end the show and go watch it. Of course, I'm kidding, but only sort of. But I'll have to go check it out because that's one of the few channels that I just genuinely watch and just watch for fun. Thankfully, there is a little bit of a connection. I know that a lot of people were mentioning. If you actually went over to our community tab, I had a question where I said, what would you like to see? What are some things you want from us as we eventually, as we go into the summer, as we start to stretch ourselves, as we start to develop new things, and as we start to get normalized? What are some things you want to see? And we got some great suggestions. Look, obviously, we got a lot of people with back issue suggestions, but I was more thinking of like, what kind of shows do you want to see? What YouTubers do we need to work with? And somebody mentioned, actually quite a few of you mentioned, that you'd like to see Jack from Red Letter Media and The Escapist come back. And, well, we're working on that. Jack and I finally have an idea for a topic for Elseworlds, and we'll zoom in and make it happen. But I'm very excited about that because Jack's so funny and so great, and I've had such an incredible time with him both times he's been on. It's one of the few times when we did our Punisher episode, which is his first appearance here, that I felt like I was actually like doing my job, like I was literally watching the Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie, and I'm taking notes, and I'm just enjoying it, but I'm also doing it for the work, and then I'm having the notes while I'm doing the conversation, and I'm like, wow, I'm actually like doing my job. It really felt like a job, but like not in a drudgery kind of like, ugh, this is work now. In a fun way, where it's like if you are at work, no matter what it is, and you're in that groove and you're like doing it well, and you're doing your job well. That's how it felt. It was really cool. So that was my connection. Stephen Hibshman says, as someone who trade weights, what are some of your personal favorite comics to have come out in 2020? Trade weighting is not a bad idea if you are trying to save money, because obviously, a lot of people can't afford the like $4 a month per book if you can get the whole thing collected at a discount. But as far as the personal favorite comics to come out, I actually made a Twitter post about that the other day. I made a little collage. The top 3 books that you need to get, that you should own, that have come out in trade over the past year so far, that you should own, are Spider-Man Life Story. I think it's just one of the best Spider-Man books written in years. I think it will be up there on Spider-Man lists with Spider-Man Blue and Kraven's Last Hunt. It's obviously another alternate reality book, but I think it's up there. Zdarsky does an amazing job. Bagley is doing some incredible work. And one of the unsung heroes of that book is Zdarsky's cover work. That's great. Obviously, Batman Universe is one of my favorite Batman books of recent years. Darrington's art is second to none. He is in his prime. If Darrington is drawing a book, you need to buy it because you need to see what that man's doing. I'm actually going to try and reach out to him, get him on the show, because I could talk about his art forever. And Bendis, man, who'd have thought? But he really has an interesting, unique, and relatable voice for Batman, and I love it. But that combination, Bendis' story, Darrington's art, dream team. And finally, the other book I think you need to own is Superman Up in the Sky. Tom King, Andy Kubert. It's so good. And if you love Superman, you're going to love this book. If you don't really get Superman, you might love this book because it really puts Superman out on display. It gives him challenges, but it also highlights why he works and why he's so special. So those are three that I would recommend, that I have recommended in the past. Artist FKA Red, Avengers Assembled sucks, and Disney Marvel cartoons are dead to me. Yeah, they're pretty terrible. I was I'm gonna take a minute and actually just talk about this because I don't have a really good format to do it. I guess I could probably co-opt an entire Elseworlds to do it, but why? I think, and I've talked about this before, but I don't know if I've ever talked about it here, like on a live show. Marvel could blow DC out of the water in their direct market animation department. First of all, it's Disney. They are the inspiration for Miyazaki. They are the leader in animation, or at least they used to be, or at least they bought the leaders in animation. I mean, obviously Pixar is like the gold standard. These people should be forging paths, and instead they're resting on laurels and putting out subpar quality projects. And I think that what they should be doing, because they have the capacity for it, is the reason why I'm mentioning it, is they need to start from the beginning. They should go with like Avengers or Its Mightiest Heroes or Hulk versus Wolverine in terms of animation style. Pick a style. Not that Avengers Assemble cartoon, not Marvel Spider-Man, not even Ultimate Spider-Man. I'm talking a very stylized but still translatable format. Avengers or Its Mightiest Heroes or Hulk versus Wolverine. It encapsulates the characters and also sells it no matter what kind of story you're telling. You have one animation standard. Then you start from the beginning and you do tentpole movies with character solo movies as well. You get one core cast where you basically go, here's everyone in the Marvel Universe. I'm going to start casting them. And you cast them and you lock those cast members in. Not unlike Justice League Unlimited, where it's like you're playing Captain America, Thor, Spider-Man, Hawkeye, Hulk, Moon Knight. Literally, you lock in as many as you can for each project you're working on. And so you do those tentpole movies, but you start kind of in the beginning, right? So you could start with like Fantastic Four #1. Not #1, but you could start with like one of the first origins or one of the first adventures of the Fantastic Four. Cast Fantastic Four, cast the Avengers from that time, and you literally just start releasing like tentpole movies. Fantastic Four and like Avengers, and like go in linear order. You put out an Avengers movie, you put out another team movie, and you put out a singular character movie. And they're all animated, they're all voice cast by the same team, and moreover, they are similar in animation style. So it's like there is a standardization to it. There's a consistency to it. Of course, you can get different animation directors in to do, like, if it's a Black Widow story or if it's an X-Men story, it's going to feel a little different, because you're going to have a different tone, a different vibe. And you just make those. And you make, like, I don't know, 2 every year, maybe, or 4 every other year. And eventually you'll have, like, a library of animated movies that are adaptations of classic Marvel stories. I don't know. I think that would sell, because the reality is, you're not, like, I think that what comic book companies and what comic book ancillary media needs to understand is, yes, the MCU had mass appeal. That's kind of a diamond in the rough. It's kind of rare. I think that if you really want to make your money off of these IPs, you need to just hammer in on the audience you have, the audience that exists, that wants the thing you're selling. Look at CBS All Access. Those people clearly figured out what side their bread is buttered on, and it's the Star Trek side. Because they're not, I mean, if they're developing any other projects that are not Star Trek related, I ain't hearing about it. And if anyone's going to hear about it, it's going to be people who pay attention to entertainment news, pop culture, because they're the only ones who know what's going on with a CBS specific app, right? So you want to sell to those people, and and that's what you need to do. And the fact is, if you're selling anything that's geared specifically for an audience, a target demographic, you need to have an understanding that there's an expectation of quality. If you're only making sporting equipment for lacrosse, you better make the best damn lacrosse equipment you can. If you're going to sell animated movies, you better best make good animated movies that are delivering the kind of stories that the audience you're selling it to expect, or they're going to leave. So that got me on a tear, but thank you very much. Dre Burr, it's a running joke that people see you on Benny and Rob's channel and then follow you, and that's true of me, but you quickly became my favorite thanks to the content. I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. Thanks. Yeah, man, it's funny. I've actually made, I mean, obviously you'll hear me make that joke about, you'll see me on the other guys, and then, hopefully you'll jump ship and come over here, or at least tether yourself to our ship. But, I've heard a surprising amount of people who found out about Benny or Rob through us, which I'm like, I don't buy it, but I do hear it a lot, and I think that's kind of cool. Although I'm kind of like, well, did they really need the help? I mean, come on. But I do. I love hearing that you guys dig us, because that's that's very kind of you. And I'm indebted to them, because I don't know if we'd have the audience we have now without them. And they were, especially back in the day, very generous with us. They like, I've made multiple videos for both channels that their audiences just outright hated, but a very small percentage of them kind of came over to us and watched and enjoyed what we made. But they were very kind to allow us to make those videos for them, because they just had such a larger audience, and it was a huge help for us. Justin Rayberg says, who are some artists you enjoy, you will read the books of, even if the writing is awful? And the same for writers you enjoy but has bad art. The reality is I don't. There are some books that I don't read because one has a failure, even if the other has a strength. Symbiote Spider-Man is one of those things. I enjoyed the first volume, but by the time the first volume wrapped up, I couldn't do it anymore. I want to read more Peter David Spider-Man. He seems to get the character. When you let him write about stuff that happened in the 80s, he's even more strong, because he was writing about those characters back then. So he has one foot in that time period anyway. And of course, Peter David, man, he knows what he's doing. But Greg Land's art made me go, I can't read it. The second volume came out, the second story arc came out, and it was hitting all my buttons, but the art was so distractingly bad, I couldn't get into it. And the fact is, if the art is great but the story's dumb, I might enjoy at least looking at it. All-Star Batman and Robin the Boy Wonder, Batman Spawn, Spawn Batman. Those two books have, top tier, like, it's career defining art. McFarlane's art on Batman was never better than it was in Spawn Batman. Jim Lee's Batman work, I would say, has never been better than it was in Asbar, because All-Star Batman and Robin the Boy Wonder was a Frank Miller project, and Jim Lee is a huge fan of Frank Miller. And so he is putting in, he's not just doing the work, but he is like putting his heart and soul into that work, and it is some of the best stuff of his career. Those are a few exceptions. I'm sure there are a couple more. Eric Larson's art I really enjoy, particularly 25 years ago. But I do dig Michelinie's writing, so I don't really mind, looking at that stuff and revisiting it, which we did for a back issues recently. Dre Burr, how should the X-Men be introduced to the MCU? It's funny, I actually just read an article about that the other day, where some desperate news outlet that was trying to get clicks said that there's a source at Marvel or Disney or whatever who has all but confirmed that the Fantastic Four and the X-Men are coming soon and that they have a plan in place. And then and then of course the editorial came in where they were like, this proves that they're going to be using the multiverse to introduce them. I think it's such a bad idea to use the multiverse. I like the multiverse, and I like the idea of exploring the multiverse, but I don't like the idea of using the See, here's the thing. It's my same problem with like the Warcraft universe. I remember being introduced to Warcraft because Tiffany played WoW, and when I was introduced to the orcs or the horde, and I was like, oh, that's neat. There's like this whole group of people who like live here, and they're second class citizens, and they're marginalized. And it's like, no, they came from another friggin' reality, and now they're trapped here. Well, that's kind of like a defining characteristic of who they are, right? They're a displaced people who came from a place that they can never go back to. If you make that a fundamental characteristic of the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, you will diminish the actual effect of what those characters and what their impact is supposed to be. Sure, the X-Men, you could play up the whole mutants came from another reality and they're trapped here. And that's why people are such jerks to them. You could do that, and that's more interesting, I guess, than if you did it with the Fantastic Four. But I'm not interested in that element. I'm interested in the idea that the mutants themselves are a group of people who are from here, who are part of this reality, that they are an undeniable aspect of our daily life, and we just have to get over it, or we have to start getting bigoted about it. And those are the two camps, right? I really don't want to imagine, the X-Men came from another reality, they come here, then all of a sudden you're going to introduce the Galactus and the Phoenix Force and Annihilus and all that stuff, and you're going to be like, oh, they just eased right into our universe, but people still don't like them. I don't know. It muddies the waters and it complicates the characters. The Fantastic Four could be astronauts who, like Taylor in Planet of the Apes, went through a cloud and ended up in the future, but they're trapped in the 60s in their minds. Or you could just say that they're young. You could just do ultimate versions of them. With the X-Men, you could just say there is an entire group of people. Professor X has a machine that finds them all. He's also the world's most powerful telepath, and as a result has used his abilities to obfuscate mutants from us, but sudden thing happens and they have to reveal themselves, because there's always a moment in X-Men's history where they have to reveal themselves to the world. In any incarnation that you use of the X-Men, there's always some story where it's like, it's time for us to reveal ourselves to the world. I like that way better than them coming through a friggin' portal, or Doctor Strange being like, I can't keep it open forever. Like, it's because then it's like there's an element of that that's like quantum freaking leap, where it's like, are we gonna go back home anytime soon, or we can never go home again? Like, pass. Matthew Mosley says, today I got a copy of Amazing Spider-Man Annual #1, and tomorrow's my 1-year anniversary with my lovely wife. I hope you're having a good weekend. Here's a little something for the best YouTube channel. Thank you, Matthew. Congratulations to you and your lovely wife. Amazing Spider-Man Annual #1, I believe, is the introduction of the Sinister Six. The only reason why I know that is because we covered a Sinister Six story just very recently. And you have me beat, because my only Amazing Spider-Man annual that I own is #3, which I believe my parents got this for me for a Christmas. Yeah, that is signed by Stan Lee, and yeah, it's Spider-Man was being courted by the Avengers. It's a really fun story, and it's one of the oldest books that I own. But you're ahead of me by 2 books, so very nice. Ryan Craig, I pitched in Elseworlds on comic and film score as another, maybe songs and albums made for comic films. There's Spawn, Spider-Verse, Batman Forever, and many more. That's true. Joel reached out to me. He was like, hey, we should do songs that are about, like, superheroes. And then he tried to name a few, and they were all about Superman. And I like the idea of doing music or talking about music. My only issue is, like, how do you talk about music without playing any of it? And I would want to play it. You know what I mean? But I think but like you said, like, there's soundtracks to movies, and there's like that weird Spider-Man album from, I think, the 70s. There's a lot of different comic-related music, and I very much wanted to have a whole show dedicated to that. Back when we were trying to come up with, like, vehicles for everyone on the channel. But I don't know. I'm reticent to do it, and I don't know why, but I would be happy to do it. And so maybe we'll do that. All right, you convinced me. James, I'm not sure if it would do well, but could there be a back issues on Death Note? I really want to see Ben and Ethan's reactions to Light's plans. Also, maybe Bendis Daredevil for back issues. I don't think we're going to do Death Note. It's just a little too obscure. It's a little too off the beaten path. And for me, like, if we're going to go off the beaten path, it has to be something that resonates with me very strongly. That's why we've done Bone, Tick, Max, like Spawn twice. And that's why we won't do Death Note. As far as Bendis' Daredevil, there's always time. And I would like to do Bendis' Daredevil, so we'll eventually get there. We will not do Bendis' Daredevil first or next, but we will get there eventually. So if you all hang in there, we'll probably do your favorite story at some point. Forgotten Kami says, currently at work, just popping in to grab the link for later and drop a little support for my favorite channel. Hope everyone's doing well. We are. Thank you very much. We're trying, holding in there. Everyone's doing well. Everybody's feeling good, still healthy, still trying to, maintain. So thank you, Forgotten Kami, and thank you for your continued support. The Red Samurai, haven't been reading comics that much lately. Yeah, that's true. Because of school, but I bought Superman Up in the Sky and ordered Batman Universe, still waiting on Amazon, and now waiting for Green Lantern Earth 1 Volume 2. Any other recommendations? I didn't realize that Earth 1 Volume 2 is it pre-order? Because if it is, I'll have to pre-order it. Doomsday Clock, you gotta grab, obviously. Zdarsky's Daredevil is so great. I would recommend that. Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk is excellent and totally worth checking out. That seems good. For now, that's what I would say. Achilles Dude, hey Sal, do you enjoy any adult beverages? I've been known to partake in an adult beverage every now and again, but as they say, as the young kids say, I'm a teetotaler. I don't imbibe. on a regular basis, ever, really, particularly when I was younger. I saw the effects of substance abuse and alcoholism firsthand, and I was very turned off by it. And I mean, as one would be, and I understand the idea of like portion control, moderation, just having self control, and I don't begrudge anybody who does enjoy a good drink every now and again or a good puff every once in a while. But having witnessed it and having lived through it and having not personally, like I wasn't a victim of it, but having lived through it and seeing it and having a history in my family, I would like to avoid it if possible. I don't want to find out I don't have good impulse control problems. You know what I mean? So I try to avoid it as best I can. That being said, I do enjoy a snifter of port at Christmas. I do have champagne at New Year's or at celebrations. At the wedding, I had champagne. Yeah, yeah, and I've had, when we're having like a party, and I don't mean like a college party, but like a get together party, and someone brings something that's like of a particular note. I'll celebrate. The last time I drank anything to any excess was a friend of mine flew me out to visit him, and he wanted to tell me some very good news in person. And we went to a sushi bar, and we split a big bottle of sake, and he was just demolished by it, and I don't think I felt anything. And like I was very worried because I was like, okay, like I've never gotten drunk in my life, but I will with you, my old friend, and I didn't. But I did carry him back to the hotel or to his apartment. But I will say this: there was one. We were finishing the bottle. We were having these little drinks, and I remember he was like, we gotta finish it. We had one more, and I just brought it to my lips. And I was like, I'll just slam it back, and I brought it to my lips, and I just breathed in the top layer, and I felt this like this thing in the back of my head that was like, if you drink this, it will be the end of you. And so I was like, nah. And then he drank it, and then I carried him back to his house. But yeah, so but I don't, because I that's why. Gorgonfish, why hasn't Disney done the Big Hero 6 treatment with Power Pack? Do you think they would go the live action series movie route? I think that if Jeff Loeb was allowed to keep going, that if Marvel Television was not affected by Feige and Disney's plans with Disney Plus, it was an inevitability that there would have been a Power Pack show, live action, that spun out of Cloak and Dagger. Now I think that we will get a Power Pack animated show. I expect a Power Pack animated series on Disney Plus. I'm not because I've heard anything. I just genuinely expect that to be a thing. So I don't know. I honestly don't know what took them so long, or what is taking them so long. Yo Mama says, would you ever do an episode of back issues on Batman Odyssey? Absolutely. I just need to understand it first. I have read it twice, and maybe 3 times, and I'm like, what the hell is happening in this thing? Like, and I think the thing is I need to just stop being afraid of it and just read it one more time and then go, okay, we're just going to talk about it, because there is no rhyme or reason to some of these things, and I don't get it. Like, it's just off the wall. And I really don't want Ben or Ethan to know how off the wall it is, because it is a train wreck. What? Says, I looked up if it was possible to get a photo cake of the back issue's video cover for Invincible to eat during the episode. Turns out you can't get them right now due to COVID. That sucks, man. I know what you're talking about. I think you can get them from like Baskin Robbins of all things. But yeah, I'm just gonna have nachos instead. Thanks for everything you do / have done for me. I owe you. Well, listen, what? Um, I really appreciate the thought and the gesture of wanting to celebrate the idea that we're doing Invincible on back issues. Check it out next week. But you don't have to do anything special. Like, eventually we're going to get to it. Invincible's getting a show on Amazon Prime, and so it makes sense to do it. And I don't want to go the Hellboy route where it's like either we missed the boat on the last piece of public media they're ever going to make of Hellboy for the next 10 years, or running into Mignola and having him be a complete dick. So, because we'll never do Hellboy now, at least not for another however long it's going to take for them to try and make a movie. And I don't think I'm going to do it then either. With Invincible, I don't want to miss the boat, and we're going to make, and also Colton was good enough and generous enough to donate a significant amount of money towards a very worthy charity during a time when comic book stores are struggling, and he supported and represented us in a big bad way. And so I'm so thankful we were able to accommodate something like that and make him happy and people like you happy at the same time. So have a great weekend, and thank you so much for your incredibly generous donation, and I hope you really enjoyed the episode. I will give you this spoiler. We all enjoyed it, so there's no part of the show where we're like, it sucks. And I think you're going to be very surprised and excited by how the episode goes. Brian G, this semester's over, have $5. I will, Brian, thank you. And congratulations on wrapping up the semester. Congratulations to all of you. I want to take this opportunity, Brian G, to just congratulate you and everyone in your boat who has finished their semester. Whether you worked like a dog or you coasted, it is hard to be in school and to stay there, particularly now when you are missing out on physically being there, on having that relationship with your professors, with your fellow students and classmates, and being able to participate in campus-related activities. You're being screwed by unfortunate circumstances beyond our control, and I'm sorry for that. But I am thankful that you are sticking with it. So congratulations to you. Shane Nakarato says, Shane Nakarato says, hey Sal, appreciate all the content. Well, I appreciate you, Shane, especially my ability to not say your name. Any recommendations for good Martian Manhunter books? I loved him in Justice League, the animated series. I would recommend, I think DeMatteis did a run on Martian Manhunter, and it's pretty good. Anything by Keith Giffen would be good. I know there's at least 3 different Martian Manhunter series. I did not like the latter 2, like the most recent 2, but anything before the New 52, I would check out. Yeah, but DeMatteis, I think, did a run. I would check that out first. Mr. Giggles helping us out with a burger. Thank you, Mr. Giggles. Really appreciate it, man. Thank you. Nukin says, you guys were honestly the first comic channel I started watching. Elseworlds led me to Joel, and your presence led me to The Weekly Pull. Y'all are why I read. That's very, very kind. Thank you, Nukin. That's really, really cool. I'm so glad we could bring you to other channels. I'm glad that we were your first. That means a lot because, like, I know we've been doing this for about 6 years, but it feels like we're just kind of starting. And so, when people say, like, I've been watching you for, like, I was in high school and I'm graduating college now, and I'm kind of like, what? Like, we just started doing this. But thank you, man. Thank you, Nukin. It's really kind. Ryan Craig, I just saw Jay and Bob 2. It was quite something. It was quite something. It was a movie that I watched. It happened. And you could tell that everyone who made it was having a really good time. I think that's fair to say, right? You could really tell that everybody who was working on that movie was having a lot of fun. and that's nice. Eduardo Perez finally got my bachelor's in science of agriculture. Special thanks to you and Joel for helping me get through. Congratulations, Eduardo. Excelsior, and good luck with that. I'm really excited to hear where this journey takes you, man. Thank you, Eduardo, and congratulations. Mr. Freeze998, currently reading Bendis' Daredevil. Nice. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. And it's funny because if you read his older stuff and then you read his newer stuff, you're like, wow, he really changed. But what's funny is if you read before Bendis' Daredevil and read like his Elektra, you'll be like, oh, this is not what I was expecting. James says, how do you feel about the Age of Apocalypse series, and would you ever want to do a back issues episode on them? I'm not a huge fan of Age of Apocalypse. I think it's like whatever, like it's an alternate reality that doesn't matter. But it was so important and so influential, and it's like one of people's favorite, like it's so many people's favorite X-Men period. We would be stupid not to do it. Ben read a lot of Age of Apocalypse, and I don't know why or where he got access to it back in the day. Like, he read it back when it was happening, or at least some of it. So it's great because it gives him a really skewed understanding of X-Men. So when we'll talk about things, he'll be like, what about this? And I'm like, that was in an alternate reality during one very small period of time. But I would not be averse to it. I don't think we don't have any collections of Age of Apocalypse. I need to get like the omnibus or something. That would be a lot of fun because Age of Apocalypse would be cool. Like I feel like we did an Onslaught episode and then the video didn't record it. So we had an audio version of me, Ben, and Ethan doing Onslaught, and then I lost the audio. So I re-recorded one with Mike and Ming from Comic Book Men. And but I do wish we had done the like Onslaught with the crew, with Tiffany and Ben and Ethan. And Age of Apocalypse might be the opportunity to do that. DJ Speakboy, thanks for being you. And I got looks like a pair in a workout headband, admiring themselves in the mirror. Thank you, DJ Speakboy, for your generosity and for using those GIFs, which I love. I don't know why. I think these stickers are so cute and fun, and I love seeing them because it like really jazzes up the chat. I don't know. It's a lot of fun. So thank you very much, man. And thank you for being you. Raymux says, how long do you think we'll have to wait until the DCEU introduces sidekicks like Aqualad, Speedy, and Robin? Well, they got to get the heroes down first before they can start doing their sidekicks. Hell, they introduced their introduction to Batman introduced a dead Robin. So I don't think it's on their minds. I wish they would, but I don't think they're going to anytime soon. The funny thing is, you know, Titans obviously is a show that is successful amongst its audience, and so there is an audience for the sidekicks, and and it's not confusing anybody. Like no one's like, well, what the hell? I saw this Wonder Woman movie, but you know, I'm seeing all these sidekicks. I don't understand. Are they connected? Who are they if the other heroes are older? Like whatever nonsense complaints people would make. But I am happy to say that. I'm happy to imagine that we'll get there sooner now than ever. I think that during the Snyder era, there was probably not gonna be any sidekicks. But now, I think there's more opportunity than ever before. W. Vang 0013 says, hey Sal, hey. This is a bit of a random question, but I was wondering, is Yuri from Spider-Man game a real Marvel character? I really like her, and she's pretty much Spidey's version of Gordon. Yes, she is. Yuri Watanabe is a Spider-Man character. She was introduced, I believe, during Brand New Day. But if you play through all of Spider-Man and you play through the bonus stuff, like the Black Cat missions, you get more about who she is and what role she plays. And that stuff that happens to her in the game is exactly, well, not exactly, but it's pulled straight from the comics. Not the stuff that leads up to it, but what she becomes. That's all I'll say. But yeah, no, Yuri is from the comics, and she's fun. She's not quite Gordon in the books, unfortunately. She's not nearly as connected to Spider-Man as she was in the game. they really play up Yuri in the game versus the comics. And by the time Brand New Day is over, you will never see her again. Matt Kermode says, "Hey Sal, in the ideal world, where would you work? Would it be comics, movies, Marvel, DC? What do you think are your biggest strengths?" Well, I'll tell you this. It feels like I'm in the ideal world right now because I get to do what I love, hang out with my friends, work with my wife, have this wonderful person as my wife. Like, I got a lot of good stuff going for me. So I don't want to muck it up with any expectations or wishing. But I will say this: I would not be here if I got everything I wanted when I started wanting them. And I didn't make it to this by choosing to become a YouTuber. When I was a kid, like a little kid, I wanted to make movies. And that kind of like I wanted to draw comics as a little kid. And I had no drawing acumen and I was friends with a couple of people who were much more talented than I was, and that always vexed me. I went to the Joe Kubert School for a summer class, and I was very, disheartened by the experience, and so I did not pursue comic art, but I did like drawing, and I continued to do that for a long time afterwards. But that would be my first kind of like dream that didn't go that direction. Then in high school, I was like, I want to make movies. I fell in love with movies. I loved the language of movies and the art and all that stuff. I was not as visually talented as the movies I would watch, and I wanted to like capture these images, but it turns out all I had were like a handful of stock images that anyone with any experience watching movies could have thought of. And so after seeing Clerks, I was like, I'll just get into writing. And so I would write a lot of scripts, and they were all very kind of like bland and obvious, and they didn't have very good endings because I didn't really understand story structure. So that was another one. I did ultimately make a movie when I was in college. It's very bad, and it is emblematic of all my shortcomings. My reach exceeds, like, how I said Jay and Bob 2 was a movie that I saw. Like, you could say about the movie I made that the guy who made it clearly wanted to make it. That's like the highest praise I can give that kid, because the sound isn't very, like, the sound is as good as the sound engineer who we had on set to record. But once it was given to me, who didn't know anything, it was a waste of time. The music, again, given to us by a talented band, waste of time, used in my hands. The editing is okay. I did know how to cut a scene together, but without the good understanding of sound and visual acuity, like storyboarding, every scene is flat, every scene is obvious. It's just a standard two-shot coverage. It's just, the dialogue is obvious and plain. And if that movie had been the thing, then I would have made movies, and those movies would not be very good, and my career would be very quickly over. I worked for Panavision lenses and cameras for a little while, and I showed incredible prowess according to the guy who worked there, like the main guy. And so I could have been a cameraman, and if I'd wanted to work in film, if I'd just been in love with movies so much, then I should have said yes to that job, which I didn't. And I could have been a cameraman on major movies, and so that was another possible dream that didn't happen. Then, after the movie thing didn't work out, or at the very least when I realized my shortcomings were greater than my ambition, I moved into making a cartoon show, which we developed, to the point of storyboards and character designs and pitching, and we got to pitch to some real outlets: Comedy Central, Howard Stern, BBC, Adult Swim, Cartoon Network. There were a couple others. One group said yes, and then it fell apart, of course, because like every show, anyone's lucky any show gets made. But the cartoon, I was like, well, since the cartoon can't get made, maybe I'll turn it into a comic book because I know how to make those. And so we made it into a web comic because I was big into web comics at the time. I loved web comics and I loved the industry, and I was very aware of how that industry like functioned. But again, I didn't invent the comic in the year 2000. So the web comic was an abysmal like failure. It wasn't an abysmal failure. It had an opportunity to be successful, and it did not. So then I was like, well, I guess we could just make it into a comic book. Made it into a comic book. Tried that route. Producing books. We produced one issue. The printing was a nightmare. Not that the printing was bad. It was actually quite good, but the printers were a nightmare. And the experience of selling your self-published book at like basement and like church basement conventions was disheartening and frustrating, and knowing that it wasn't quite your best work and you're trying to sell it like it is was also like frustrating. It's like, so each time like a dream could have like a dream was made. It's actually kind of part and parcel with the Jim Zub conversation. If you haven't watched that Elseworlds, it's great. But Zub says it best, where he's just like, have goals, but understand that you won't achieve the ones that you set out to achieve, essentially. Each time in an ideal world, I would have been a cartoon developer, a movie director, a cameraman, a webcomic creator, a comic book writer, a comic book publisher. And each time I got to a different place, but understood better the world that I came from and learned so much more about the world I was going into. And so by the time we got to YouTube, again, growing pains, like I started doing like a review show, and it wasn't until we were like doing the thing that was the most authentic, which was back issues, that we found any semblance of success. And I would argue we still, like the success comes from you who give us success because you watch us and you like it. That's unfathomable to me. But that's the success we have. But as far as like objective success, like people like from our sphere of influence, from the people from our peers, we're still like trying to get there. You know what I mean? It's kind of fun because they're like, oh, 85,000. When do you think you're going to blow up? Like, oh, 85,000. Like I remember going out. I remember being flown by Disney to Burbank. Well, no, Anaheim. I remember being flown to Anaheim by Disney. I'm bumping elbows with people who are triple, quadruple, 1,000% times more successful / bigger. But I got flown there too. And we're all wheeling and dealing in the same capacity. And I remember going and getting in an Uber, and I was by myself, and because everybody else had gone home, and I was like, I want to be in LA for another day, and I'm hitting up all these different spots. I got to go to Grauman's Chinese Theater, which is a bucket list item for me. And the driver was like, what do you do for a living? Because that's the thing that they ask you over there. They're always like, what do you do? Not like, how are you? Or what can I do for you? They're always like, what do you do? And I said, oh, I'm a YouTuber. And they said, oh, like, how many subscribers do you have? And at the time, I think we had like 25,000. I don't remember off the top of my head. But that was the end. But I said something like that. And they said, oh, like, when do you think it's going to, like, work for you? It was just like a super condescending, but like, and I could feel it. He wasn't saying it till like, because he was like, I want to hurt this guy. It was just kind of like oh, sounds like you just started. And it's like, I've been doing this for about 2 or 3 years. And he's like, oh, you should probably stop then. So like, just objectively speaking, it's like, one of these days we'll make it. But Matt, to answer your question, I live in an ideal world. I got to talk to Todd McFarlane, and he like talked to me. You know what I mean? Like Bendis, the guy who brought me into comics again, like in the second generation, like called me by name and talked to me for like an hour about like the craft, and he wasn't like looking at his watch. I get to tell stories. They might be personal stories about myself or about my friends, but that's what I'd be doing if I was making movies or webcomics or comic books. I'd just be doing them with like dragons or spaceships or whatever, but it'd be the same shit. It'd just be the same stories, but just like with, hopefully more interesting looking. So I am in the ideal world right now. This is it. And it's funny because my parents asked me the same thing. They're like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't want to do anything. I do what I want, and I love it, and I'm thrilled. Would it be? And now it's like, I'm here, right? And it's like 85,000 subs, 3 to 30,000 views per video. Objectively speaking, not great. Thanks to you, really great. Your retention is incredible. Patreon's doing well. Brands want us because we have a real audience. Because you watch us for real. You don't just go like, oh, it's this. Like, oh, I need to know. I'm watching Watch Mojo. Like it's you are an audience. Like that's why I don't. When people say like, what about the fans? And I'm like, you're not fans. You're the audience. Like, we're it's like a stage play every day, and like we're here. Like, the only difference is there's a camera, but like it feels like a theater performance every day, which is like more authentic and more true, and a genuine connection between you and us. But because of that, like we can be, objectively down here, but we're doing okay. And so it allows me to go, what else can we do? What can we do now? And now it's like, well, ideally, in an ideal world, I'm sorry, I spent a lot of time on this question. I'm sorry, Matt, but like, in the most ideal world, we would do so well that Tiffany, Ethan, and Ben wouldn't have to work anymore. That would be the ideal world. The ideal world would be that I would be able to translate my success to them. Because Tiffany and Ethan and Ben are so creative and interesting and talented, and they deserve the opportunity that I have been afforded thanks to you, which is to put yourself out there and try things and reinvent and self-reflect and create. And I wish I could translate that more generously to those three. You know what I mean? Like that's the ideal. I for me, I'm good. Like if I could write a story about Spider-Man, if I could write a Batman story, like that'd be cool. That would be another bucket list item for me. That'd be something that would that's something they could never take away from me, and that'd be awesome. And would I like to do that? Sure. But I didn't create ComicPOP so that I could trick the comic book industry into hiring me. Like I'm living my ideal life. What I want to do now is expand it to those I love. Juan Fincher says, why wasn't Tim Drake in Event Leviathan? I hated that they showed the teams and I didn't see him. I don't know, man. I will tell you that if anyone was going to introduce Tim Drake, it would have been friggin' Bendis, because he gave Tim Drake his Robin costume, his real Robin costume, in his Young Justice book. So why wasn't he given more justice for Tim Drake? I don't know. It's something that I didn't even think about until after like all of you kind of mentioned it in the conversation, where you were like, hey, if you're talking about like detectives, what about Tim Drake? One of the best. And it's like, right. I have no goddamn idea. Mr. Freeze finished Sandman today. Congratulations. That's awesome. It's a hell of a ride. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, man, it's good. It's good stuff. Andre Didier says, what are some examples of a writer being a slave to continuity? Also, did you ever say what your pitch for Spider-Man was? Basically, if you look at any book from the 90s at Marvel, they're all slaves to continuity. They all have to like, oh, I can't use this, I can't use that, I can't do this. So like Fabian Nicieza was probably a slave to continuity. Poor bastard, because he wrote like 12 books in 1 week and tried his best to make it like a good book every week. So I would say him probably. Although I know that like Jim, not to keep pushing it, but like the Jim Zub interview, like Jim was talking about how when he first got on like a couple of his books, he was like, I gotta do that, I gotta do that, I got like he was really slavishly devoted to continuity. And I didn't say what my pitch for Spider-Man was, and the only reason why I haven't is because like I don't have many, and so I'm gonna hang on to this one just in case. You know, I don't expect to be able to give a pitch for Spider-Man, but if I ever do get one, I have it, and I don't want to let it go. It's very personal to me. The story. Radical Radish hopes Savage Screen comes back someday. Give me an excuse to finally watch a Turtle movie. Well, you can watch Turtles 3. It's out right now. But yeah, no, we'll bring it back. I mean, obviously, you know, to bring back Savage Screen with Ninja Turtles 3, probably worst idea we could have had. But it was literally just like we were developing a few projects that were in the movie Turtleverse, the first 3. And the first one was an overzealous 2-hour long recording session for another outlet that I'm sure they're not going to use, because like I wouldn't if I was being given a 2-hour audio file and expected to make that into something that like they would be able to monetize. Then we did a second video, which was a more respectable, not like 60-minute conversation, which I need to mix and put together. And by the time we got to the third one, I'm like, there's no fucking way that they're going to want to use any of this. So we might as well just, because we were going to watch Turtles 3 to produce another audio conversation. And I just said, like, you know what? They're never going to use any of it. Let's just record us watching Turtles 3, since we all have to watch it anyway, and just turn that into a thing. So that's where it came from. And that's why I was like, oh, well, I'll just throw it on Savage Screen. I didn't anticipate it being so poorly reviewed. Kelvin Bruno says, Sal, I used to feel bad for Joel when Benny would tell him to shut up, lol. Any chances the weekly poll returns to review older books? I love y'all. Thank you, Kelvin. Now, Joel's his own guy. If Joel really felt like that upset, he would have said something. And I will tell you this, behind the scenes, Benny would check in with Joel and be like, hey, is this still cool, or are you actually getting sick of this? So, you know, just a little bit of inside baseball. Like, you know, because the audience definitely was like, stop, leave Joel alone, blah. Benny heard that, and he was like, hey, Joel, am I overstepping my bounds here? If Joel felt slighted, marginalized, or bullied, he's an adult man. He could just say, hey, knock it off. And there have been times, like on other shows that I've been on, where like I don't take any shit, and like you'll see it if you look back. But no chance of the weekly poll returning. The weekly poll's over. The weekly poll's dead, man. I'm sorry. And not for no, you know, it was a fun show. It came out of an interesting place. You know, I would love to do it again. If Rob and Benny called me up and said, like, if because I talk to Benny every day, and I talk to Rob every like other day, basically. Like I don't talk to them as often as I would like, but like if they were to say it'd be really cool, I'd be in, like 100%. And I think that if I called any of them, they'd be the same way. But Rob is so ensconced in the things he's working on. He's got his own personal channel. He's got some really, really like admirable goals. He moved. Like, he's got a lot of big life shit happening right now, and I don't think he doesn't have a lot of time for collabs. And Benny has so many plates in the air. He's working on so many different projects that, like, I don't think he wants to look backwards. You know, I don't think he wants to be like, let's rehash something we did. Like, no, new stuff. Like, let's do that. I would like to see the weekly poll do like a special or something. Like, you know, it'd be really cool if New York Comic Con wanted to have a weekly poll panel. That'd be a great way to do it. But yeah. Ryan Craig, would you eat plant-based? I swear it's great. No. I hear what you're saying. I know a lot of people who are vegetarians or vegans, or even people who have deliberately chosen to live a vegetarian lifestyle for like a month. And I don't begrudge them. And I have had many a meal that was only vegetable or like non-meat based, and like no, I don't mind. Like it's in no way. I don't feel like I lost a day as a result, but I don't like. I don't define myself in that way, and I don't think about the world in those terms. So I'm just kind of like, well, you know, if I want something, I'll have this, you know. But you know, there are, particularly when I'm like before the coronavirus, like there were many meals that I had that were like peanut butter sandwiches. Like it's not meat based. Um, would I do it? Probably not. I think I swore to myself that like if I were to ever get married, I would have gone on a strictly vegetarian diet to slim down, and I didn't do that. So those are the only times I do it, unless like I was gonna die, and my doctor's like, you got to do this, and if that were the case, I'd be like, yep, done, like just cold, like no question, because I like this. I want to keep doing this for as long as I can. Michael Darnell, I've been loving this channel since middle school, and I'm now a couple semesters into college. That's so great to hear. Congratulations, Michael, and thanks for sticking with us for so long. Hopefully your parents didn't hear us during the middle school days. Please do Doom Patrol commentary. That show made me a fan. Right? It's a great show. I feel like with respect to commentaries, I like giving commentaries for movies that are like dumb. Like that you don't need to think or hear the dialogue in order to enjoy. Doom Patrol's like highbrow, despite the farting donkeys and stuff. I feel like Doom Patrol's too smart for us to talk during it. I would feel like a jerk, like stepping on it. I mean, I feel bad when we did the Justice League episodes, and I'm like talking during it. I'm like, this is a really good show. You should just watch it. So Doom Patrol, I don't know. I would be a little reticent to talk over that show. Meow Nian, hey Sal, ever watch Hard Boiled or other John Woo, Chow Yun Fat films? They sure have a great influence on so much media. I think you'd like them. I've seen like shitty ones, like, and I don't mean like the old shitty ones. I mean like I've seen, American versions. Like I've seen Face Off, which I believe was directed by John Woo, and I've seen at least one Chow Yun Fat movie, but it wasn't really a Chow Yun Fat movie. It was more like a movie with him in it. You know what I mean? So. No, I have not really seen. I've never seen Hard Boiled, and I've never seen like a real John Woo movie or a Chow Yun Fat film. I've seen them do movies for me, and so that's the closest thing I could say to that. But yeah, and I'm not really like a martial arts movie kind of person. Mr. Bast. I have Punisher End of Days 59 from after GBU's episode 58 or 58 episode. Nice. That is horrible. Congratulations. I wish we had done that issue, and I feel like such a jackass. And I went to 3 different comic book stores across the state to try and track it down in time to do the episode, and I just didn't get it. And that was why we did 58 instead of 59. But I'm glad you picked it up. I think since then, I now have it. Evan Parker, keep up the great work. You guys are awesome. You're awesome, Evan. Thank you so much for saying so. W Vang 0013 dropping another super chat to ask you about Shang-Chi. So thank you very much, W Vang. I really appreciate it. Let's talk about it. Is there any cool story that you know of that we should read to prepare ourselves for the upcoming movie? I'm really excited to see a higher budget Streets level MCU movie. Me too, man. I hope Shang-Chi does well. If only, well, I hope Shang-Chi is like real wire work, actual stunts, good camera angles and shots, like so that you can actually see the action. Because when it's done well, like we were literally watching John Wick today, and I was like, wow, like a stunt coordinator made this movie, because like you can see them. That's what I want. I would like to see that, because here's the thing, if they do that and then it does well, then they'll be like, oh, that's the formula, because that's all Hollywood is like formulas that make us money. That's the only thing I know how to do. And if they do that, then it's like, oh, then you can make like a Daredevil movie, or like any other street level. You can make a Moon Knight movie. I know they're doing a show, but like, but no, I'm not a Kung Fu guy, so I don't really have a lot of Shang-Chi stories, but I do have this like omnibus of Shang-Chi that somebody sent us, and I would love to check it out, because I still haven't cracked it. But I'll tell you this, I'm actually gonna poll the audience and find out what the best Shang-Chi stories are, because then that movie comes out, we're obviously gonna do a Shang-Chi book, and I don't know what to pick, so I'd like to know what people would think is a good Shang-Chi story, but I don't know. Dan Dragon, hey Sal, just wanted to ask if you will ever cover any of the IDW Transformers comics, not the new run, the old one. P.S. Megatron's character arc is the best. I've heard, I've checked it out. It's great. I love what they've done with that. What they did with that series. I hate that they rebooted it. The reboot I did not enjoy. We'll try, but Power Rangers did not make me wanna take those risks. The Grouchy Geek, are you feeling better, man? Hope so. Love you, man. Thank you, Grouchy Geek. Yeah, I'm feeling better. My throat's really dry right now, but don't let that like distract you, because I am actually doing fine. Like, as it turns out, if you're like what is he talking about? I was like not feeling great, and it's literally just the allergies. Like, the allergies are horrible right now. And so yeah, like I'm fine, and I'm on the Claritin, and I'm back to normal, like completely back to normal. Denton Films, being in your 20s feels like you are always waiting for romance or a job. Thank you for giving me a community entertainment while I am on standby. Yeah, man, I hear what you're saying, but I wouldn't wait. You know what I mean? Like, if you feel like you're just kind of like, if you feel like you're stuck in a rut, or you're like going through the motions, or if you're just doing the same thing over and over again, take that as a sign that you need to like change something up, and not like move or like quit your job, but start thinking about how like in your 20s you're like, your body is at like its peak. And so what does that mean? Like, if my body's at my peak right now, then I should be doing peak level shit with this body. And that should be, at the very least, like hitting the gym, running a little bit, exercising, taking care of yourself, self-maintenance. Do some of that. If you're waiting already, you might as well maintain. Not like me. Because I remember in college, like, I was like, well, time for me to jump into it. And I, like, hit the gym every friggin' day. And I was, like, I was in the best shape of my life. I was super... and things started to happen as a result. But it was because I was changing my mindset. I was changing things up, and I was, like, working towards goals. Even if they were, like, little goals or private goals or personal goals or, like, not terribly important goals. They were little ones that, like, I was just like, oh, I'm gonna do this, and as I was doing those, I would find myself embroiled in some hijink or some new development, or or development that would lead to the next thing. Get Swifty says, Batman Universe and Silver Surfer Black videos were amazing. That's another one long ago. Silver Surfer Black, check that out. Thank you so much for this. You guys have helped me with and my son bond. That's awesome. Nice. Congratulations, man. I'm glad to hear we could help in some way, or at the very least give you some great books to bond with your son over. Great name, by the way. But yeah, man, those are some good books. I'm glad. And yeah, actually, those are completely all ages titles. Like, they're still cool. You could totally get into those. That's awesome. I would recommend those any day of the week. I'm really happy to hear that. Gibson Bradfield, in your opinion, what comic book film in the 21st century got the most people to read comics? I would probably guess Thor Ragnarok, because it's the most like off the wall. I would hope that any of them did, but I doubt it. Maybe Into the Spider-Verse, because of its introduction to Miles. And like the weird stuff that comics are, and the fact that like they actually show comics in that movie. I would hope. But yeah, so I'll say Into the Spider-Verse. That'll be my guess, Gibson. Ben Wilson. Sorry, Ben. I'll get right back to you. Here he is. Zub's stories about No Road Home / No Surrender were captivating and really interesting. Me too, man. I completely agree. I loved hearing those stories. I want to go to those summits and hear that shit because that sounds like friggin' heaven to me. Um, and we went back and forth. He's like, well, if you have more questions, we'll have to do that. Like, so we'll have to do that. Oh, Ethan's here. Ah. Somnus says, I really care about you guys and have for a long time. Tiffany sent a really nice message when my grandfather passed, and it meant a lot. The population's small but loyal. I agree. You guys are incredible and so supportive. I know it's Tiffany, but you guys are also incredibly supportive of each other. I am sorry to hear about your grandfather, and I'm sure, like Tiffany mentioned it to me. But thank you, man. Like, you guys provide this like incredible outlet to have like an ongoing conversation about the things we care about, and you share so much of yourselves with us that like it feels like we know each other sometimes, and that's really dope. So thank you, man. Thank you for sharing that, and also thank you for the sentiment because I agree with you 100%. Silvery Cricket says, I felt your Justice League commentary episode was great. I would love to see some for that show. Maybe something like Patriot Act for 4th of July. That'd be fun. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a 4th of July episode, and I don't have anything for back issues, and I don't think it matters, honestly. So, and I've always thought about doing a back issues that's 4th of July related, and it never works out that way. So I don't think we're gonna do it. But a 4th of July episode for GBU is something we have done and we would definitely consider doing. That'd be a lot of fun. So thank you. Good idea. Good suggestion. Get Swifty. Last one, Sal. Any good horror-inspired comics? Tiffany's the one to tell you about that. She would probably recommend any Cullen Bunn book. Harrow County. I know she'd tell you about that one. There's a lot of Hill House books that she'd recommend. I know that Plunge is something to check out.
What was the question?
Horror comics.
Right now something is killing the children.
Something's Killing the Children. That's it.
Witches.
Witches, obviously. The first one.
Check out Gideon Falls.
Gideon Falls wouldn't be a bad one. These are all Tiffany suggestions, but they're all definitely like... so that hopefully that answered your question. Wolverine, the main man is Lobo, but Wolverine, the best there is at what he does. What's the most terrifying movie poster you've ever seen, but it ended up being a bad movie? Mine is Anaconda. Yeah, man. Thank you. Yay. I know this. Probably The Howling. As a kid, I remember seeing, because I grew up during a time of video stores. And I remember The Howling. The box art was like a friggin' wolf trying to bite you. That was a horrifying movie poster that was translated into a VHS box art. So maybe The Howling. Or The Howling 2. I know it got more extreme. Those horror movie box art covers are some of the most scary shit for some of the dumbest movies. Victor Creed, from one Jersey guy to another, I have seen every back issues and I love it. Keep going. P.S. Give X-Men a chance. Lol. I mean, hey, listen, Vic. First of all, represent. Secondly, I love X-Men, and I'm giving them a chance. We did House of X. We've done Asgardian Wars. Obviously, New Mutants is coming up. Since we have a new release date for New Mutants, which we need to get on because it's happening in August, maybe. But I got a ton more. It's just the problem is whenever we do like a poll to see what X-Men book we should do, we did Onslaught. The classic stories nobody wants, like Messiah Complex or Fall of the Mutants or Inferno. Nobody wants that one. They want like Schism, and I'm like, I don't want to do Schism. Sally Morgan, Tom Green just went live. Thoughts on him trying to steal the population? I wouldn't put it past him, son of a bitch. Classic Tom Green move. He's probably retaliating from the many years I used to spend griping about how much he sucks. As a kid, I hated Tom Green. Later on, I think like he graduated from the same school of everyone who works at Adult Swim, which is from the anti-humor school of comedy, where it's like, no, you don't understand. It's hilarious because no one would find it funny. And I'm like, that's called anti-humor. You're a troll essentially. Michael Darnell. Let me get back to you, Mike. Sorry. I want the Moon Knight show to be Doom meets John Wick meets Pink Floyd meets Slayer. Uber violence that explores blind faith with a crime and myth taste. I think you're going to be disappointed, Michael. I don't think that's going to happen. Listen, I'll take a Doom movie that is based on the game. Because right now, I have 2 Doom movies, and both of them are horse shit. I don't understand it. Especially given the fact that Doom, the first one from 2005, is like a 1-to-1 of the new Doom game, not 2016, but the new Doom game that came after that. Or before that. The new Doom game that came after Final Doom, but before the reboot. So stupid, so crappy. I want imps. I want cyber demons. I want barons and green fire and just dope shit. You know, I want crazy lunatic with a chainsaw and a BFG. I don't understand how hard it is to do that. You know, like, just make it look like friggin', I don't know. It makes me crazy. But as far as Moon Knight goes, you're not going to get that movie. I'm sorry. I would love a Moon Knight show or movie that was just the Warren Ellis book, because it's just so cool, and it's episodic, and it's like nuts. I'd love to see Charlie Houston's Moon Knight into a movie or show. I don't think any of us are going to get the Moon Knight we're asking for. James says, would you ever do a back issues on Jeff Lemire's run on Moon Knight? Yes, but not before the Warren Ellis run. I've already done the Houston run, and I think it did really well, surprisingly enough. And if we do, obviously, when Moon Knight becomes a show, we're going to do Moon Knight on back issues. I think we should probably do the Warren Ellis run. It's short, it's self-contained, more or less, and it's so freaking good. I get Jeff Lemire's run, and I think it's really cool. But it's nothing. Like, I kept reading it a little bit after Ellis left, and I was like, this is cool, but it's nothing like Ellis. Eric M with a thumbs up. Eric, thank you, man. Thank you, Eric. I feel so much better. Dan Dragon says, hey, Sal, if you're interested in any web comics, I recommend Tower of God. It's a fascinating story. And what's your favorite current season 4 episode of Rick and Morty? Oh, man. I've seen them all now. Story Train, I was like, meh. It was funny, but I wouldn't call it one of my favorites. I think, is there only 2? So I guess the most recent one, where, yeah, with Glorzo. Yeah, Glorzo's, like, I really enjoyed that episode. And I like the storytelling structure of it. That was really cool. And I really like Summer in that episode. Later, chodes. Hit me up next adventure. Like, I'm a toothpicker now. It's good stuff. So, yeah, I guess Glorzo. Dan and Graham, no question. Just a thank you for the tip on Once and Future, picking up the trade as soon as my local comic shop reopens. If you can, you should message them on Facebook and just say, I want Once and Future. And maybe they'll PayPal you and you can they'll mail it to you. But message them. They have it. They'll send it to you. But thank you, Danon. And yeah, man, Tiffany, friggin', once again, the Nostradamus of independent comics, she was like, this book. And I'm like, oh, yeah. That for me, I was like, oh, Dan Mora. Meow Nian. Speaking of The Howling, ever watch the Subspecies films? Those are pretty fun, but awful. No. I've seen Species, but not the Subspecies films. And I've only seen the first Species. I've never seen the second Species or the third Species. So no, sorry to waste your super chat on that, but no, I've never seen the subspecies films. We did do God Loves Man Kills, by the way, on back issues. Random, sorry about that, I missed you, but like we did that one, Andrew. Go watch it. Dan Dragonback to say, and who do you think would make a good horror story for Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th? Like, who would write a good Jason Voorhees? I mean, like, if you read that one issue of Moon Knight with the basement like plants, Warren Ellis do a hell of a job. I think Snyder might be fun with Jason Voorhees. Snyder knows how to tell a story about like the woods and being like chased, feeling a helplessness. Yeah, I would just give it to Scott Snyder. I'd be like, give me a Friday the 13th. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Plus, he would want to infuse it with heart, which I enjoy. Dominic, any chance we'll get Uncanny X-Force on back issues? One day, man, I wanted to do it, and I should have done it years ago, and I just didn't get around to it, but we should. I wonder if it would do well. Would it? Let me know. Would you watch it? Like, would people like it? I would like to do it. Denton Films, thanks for the advice. You are all the best. You're the best, Denton. Thank you so much. You're very welcome, man. Thank you. Catching up here. Somnus, you and Tom King keep flirting on Twitter. Interview coming? I would honestly love to see you two have a conversation about what Batman means to you all. Right? Yeah, well, I think it's just that I keep tagging him and he will respond if it's like has enough likes. I've reached out to I assume a representative of his, but I've never had the cojones to just message him and be like, come on the show. I guess I could. I wonder if he has his information. But I've considered it to the point of this episode and me doing it right now. But I would like to do that. I thought originally it would be in poor taste because he probably is aware of my opinion of his Batman work. But then again, the fact that he engages me in any way on Twitter suggests that like maybe he is aware and he doesn't care, or more likely he isn't aware, and if he were, he'd friggin' tell me to fuck off. Gibson Bradfield, there's a small part of me that hopes New Mutants gets delayed again just for more jokes. It's literally been 31 months between trailer and release. I know, man. For me, I want it to be delayed, but not for the reasons you think. I want it to be delayed because I want people to go see it. And I don't think August is soon enough. Like, I don't know if I would feel comfortable enough by August to go into a theater and sit next to like all these people, because I don't trust everybody. So yeah, but who knows? Maybe maybe some magic will happen. Andre Didier says, any thoughts on the idea of an R-rated butchered that. Thoughts on the idea of R-rated MCU films? I mean, I want them. I mean, here's the thing. It's been proven that they make money, and Disney will make anything if it makes money. Disney bought Miramax to make art house R-rated movies. I think Disney owned Miramax during like the Pulp Fiction era. So, I mean, yeah. I think that they would do it if they thought it made them money. But I also think that they're like really afraid. Like, I think if it were before Endgame, they would do it. But now that they've made Endgame and enthusiasm for the MCU has kind of tapered off, I think they're desperately afraid to lose the mainstream appeal of the MCU. It's why there's been no announcement about Deadpool, because they don't know what to do. Despite the fact that, like, you know exactly what to do. You make Deadpool, and you just make it R-rated. You just make Deadpool, and you use half the budget. You know, you don't give Deadpool $150 million. You make Deadpool for $85 million. And you make Deadpool R-rated, and you give it to a different marketing team, not the MCU marketing team. And you just go, hey, dial back the MCU references, or you can use the following characters in the MCU. Or you can't use the following characters in the MCU. That's it. And then you put Deadpool in your MCU movies, and Deadpool is censored, or at the very least, he's dialed back. Because, like, Deadpool isn't funny just because he makes R-rated jokes. Ryan Reynolds is funny irrespective of toilet humor. And honestly, some of the funniest stuff for me in Deadpool 1 and 2 are the actual genuine humor and not like the toilet jokes. And I think there is room for that. And I think there's actually room for those movies to be better as a result of editorial mandate and restriction. I think that art comes from adversity. So I would hope that they're smart enough to know to do that. I just don't. I just don't, I just don't get it. Velvet Enigma says, "Hey Sal, hey Velvet, and thank you very much for your very generous super chat. Really, really appreciate it, dude. Thank you. It's been a while since I watched the channel, but you and the gang helped me through a lot of tough times back in the day, and I find that you're doing it again. Oh, and I find that you're doing so again now. Thanks for always being able to raise my spirits. Keep doing what you're doing." Thank you very much, Velvet Enigma, and thank you so much for being with us back in the day. I'm so glad we could help you through those hard times, and I hope we're able to continue this relationship and give you some respite during any hard times now. I know that we just do what we do, and we try to, have fun, and hopefully you derive some enjoyment from that. And that's all we can really hope for. But thank you so much for being here and coming back. Because it's so rare that people do that. That, like, people go from watching a YouTube channel to not watching a YouTube channel to going back to it. It's just part of the culture where it's like, hey, have you watched so-and-so in forever? Nah, I just don't watch them. Weren't you like the biggest fan of theirs? Yeah, I was. Like, it's funny. But thank you, man. Thank you, Velvet. Really appreciate it, dude. CB3 R-rated Power Rangers? Why not, right? I mean, like, the last one didn't do anything, so who gives a shit? Go for it. I think if I were Saban at this point, the movie thing didn't work out. But that doesn't mean there isn't an audience. So maybe what Saban needs to do is just, maybe what Saban needs to do is go to like TV or streaming services. But do the hard R, because like your audience is going to watch it regardless. You know what I mean? So go for it. I'd say yeah. I mean, like, you're gonna get me to watch at least the first episode. Michael Darnell, what if Daredevil was Iron Fist instead of Danny Rand? That'd be awesome. I'd read that book in a heartbeat. That's a great idea. If you want to see that, read Civil War or that period of Daredevil, because Danny Rand was Daredevil. But I like the idea that Matt Murdock becomes an Iron Fist. That's cool. They should do what if Doctor Strange became an Iron Fist? Like, instead of going to, Comertage or whatever, he goes to Kunlun. That'd be really cool. I like that. Swaggin' Dragon, hey Sal, would you do Fractions Hawkeye in a video? Totally. Yeah, no. When Hawkeye the show comes out, what do you think we're doing on back issues? That's why I'm saving it. But yeah, no, Fractions Hawkeye is the Hawkeye to do. So yeah, don't worry. Robert Kozub, I got Batman Venom in a 50-cent bin just before the lockdown, but I still have to go to work, so I haven't had a chance to read it yet. Looking forward to it. Thanks for the great shows. Thank you, Robert. Sorry you have to go to work, but yeah, it'll be waiting for you. Venom is a fun story. And knowing the history that like O'Neill's been trying to tell that story and he's told it multiple times only adds to it. The art's great. And the story is ridiculous. Like, it starts out and you're like, oh, I think I see where this is going. And then you're like, what? It's really off the wall. Yeah, I love that. I love that book. Caleb Paris, I'd have a beer with the ComicPOP gang. Well, the ComicPOP gang would have a beer with you, my friend. And come Comic-Con time again, we'll do it. Yeah. Thanks, man. I mean, I wouldn't have one, but The other guys would definitely. Uh, James says, "I love the Warren Ellis short. I love the Warren Ellis run, short to the point, but it gives you an idea of how Mark handles being Moon Knight, the public, and even Khonshu. Did any of the stories in the Ellis run stand out to you?" Yeah, we actually reviewed one issue on the old Off the Rack show, and I don't remember what issue it was, 6, 8, but that one, it's the one where there's a body in the basement and it's like it's leaching into the ground. Like, it's super cool. That was the one where like Ethan and Ben were like, "What is like? I thought Moon Knight was a joke." But that one, so good. W Vang 0013. I did. Did I skip him?
Swag and Dragon.
Yeah, Swag and Dragon. Would you do Fractions Hawkeye?
And then
And Robert said, "I got Batman, Venom, and Effective Zen Bin."
Oh, okay. Just want to make sure you got it.
Yeah, no, I covered him.
I've been listening.
Good. Thank you.
Oh my god.
All right.
I'm hanging out with Ripley.
Good. W Vang 0013. I know you guys didn't like Scott Derrickson's Doctor Strange movie, so I wanted to know what your thoughts on Sam Raimi directing Doctor Strange 2. Also, over-under on Bruce Campbell showing up. It wasn't that we didn't like Scott Derrickson's Doctor Strange movie. Like, if I didn't give it if either of us didn't give it like 100% glowing review, people automatically assume we didn't like it. And it's part of the reason why people don't like back issues, because they're like, "Oh, you didn't praise it, so you obviously hate it." And it's like, there's subtlety here. With Doctor Strange, there's a lot that movie did right. And for contrast, that movie also did a lot to make it not as engaging as it could have been. And ultimately, for me, and I know Tiffany was hoping for a more comic accurate Doctor Strange movie, and I think it was a little bland. I think that there were some standout moments. You could tell the sequence when Strange rips into whatever her name was, and by the way, like, she didn't do anything interesting. Like, she didn't have a strong enough role. Like, it was just like that might as well not be in that movie. But like, when he rips into her, you could tell that, like, I think Dan Harmon wrote that scene. But I kind of like wish Dan Harmon had just written the movie, because Dan Harmon knows what a self-destructive asshole who thinks he's smarter than everybody in the room would do. And that would have been pretty cool. But the movie, like, and then you end it with Dormammu, and, Anyway, I think, and I'm alone in this one, but I think Sam Raimi could, I don't think he will, but he could deliver a Roger Stern era Doctor Strange movie. I think he could give it a lot of character, and I think he will. Will he give us Doctor Strange from the comics finally? Maybe. Sam Raimi at least has a unique enough voice to have the clout to force the issue with his bigwigs. Bruce Campbell is a given. He'll probably, if anything, he'll do a voice. That's how he put him in Drag Me to Hell. And I don't know. I feel like the perfect director for Doctor Strange still hasn't been found. And when it comes to, for me, like, I don't know, like, the suit is cool in the movies, but like, I wish it were more, like, I wish it were less like of a mess. It's all these wrappings, and give me the gloves, get rid of those sling rings. Like, what are you doing? It's just, anyway. I feel like, I think if Raimi had directed one, it might have been more exciting. But I think now that he gets to do two, he can do whatever he wants. And because it's Raimi, it's like, it'll be Raimi, which will be silly. But I don't want it to be silly so much as I want it to be, like, authentic. I don't know if that. No. Anyway, that's my answer. Matt Keys, without so many spoilers, what are your feelings of Invincible? It's great. I kind of, there's a turn where I wish they had just gone with it. But I get why they didn't. Michael Darnell, Azzarello writing Daredevil as a concept frightens me. I hate that idea, and I wish you hadn't said it. I would hate it. I know it. Dan Dragon, hey, last question. If you could give one superpower to any character from Marvel or DC, hero or villain who does not have a power, what would it be? Who would it be, and what would their power be, and why? Jesus. That's a lot of questions for one last question, but let me tell you. If one character could get, I guess Alfred could get a power where he can't sleep. He doesn't need to sleep. You know, that way he doesn't have to sleep. I don't know. Like, I think, I mean, Batman has that power already. When it comes to, like, I remember interviewing David Michelinie back during the Big Shots era, and he mentioned that when he created James Rhodes, he created him with the intent of making him Tony Stark's regular friend, and he had no intent to turn him into War Machine. He thought that it was actually like a violation of the character and of the conceit of James Rhodes, which is Tony Stark needs a regular friend. And when you make him into another Iron Man, you have changed the dynamic of their friendship, and you've fundamentally altered the character. And I feel like there are so few regular people in these universes whose strength comes from them being regular people that it, like, hurts them to give them powers. Like, I would never give Aunt May, Uncle Ben, Alfred, Pepper Potts, like, I mean, obviously she's rescue, but, like, you know, Mary Jane powers. I would never give them powers. But at the same time, if the rest of the world lived like me, you'd never have Flash Thompson Venom, which I would argue is one of the most refreshing decisions to do with Venom that's ever been done with the character. So I don't know who I would give powers to, or what, like, regular person I would select. Because if you announced that, like, any member of the Bat family suddenly have powers, I would hate it. And if you announced to me that, like, any supporting character, like Foggy Nelson, can suddenly see in the dark or something, I would not really like it. I recognize an inherent value in regular people in these extraordinary lives. Like, I'm buying the Heroes book. I don't want to see the hero's friend who also has powers. You know what I mean? I know it's kind of a non-answer, but there you go. Adam SOS, really looking forward to you interviewing Frank Miller in your Halloween costume. Yeah, man, one day. We reached out to someone who purported to be a representative for him. I doubt it's gonna happen, but we're trying, because I would like to do that. I would love to talk to Frank Miller. The Real Zoobs, Why'd You Spill Your Beans? Lighthouse. We saw The Lighthouse yesterday, so we're Ethan, Tiffany, and and Ben are just like, yeah, that movie was cool. You know what I'm really thankful for? That we got to talk about it afterwards. I haven't had a real movie, like, conversation, and I don't mean to disparage superhero movies, but I mean like a real movie conversation like I used to in high school or college, where it's like, hey, we saw this movie, let's talk about what it means. I haven't done that in a long time, so it's a lot of fun to get back into that. Thank you, Tiffany. Ryan Rivera says, just dropped in after binge watching all of Cowboy Bebop. Just wanted to say thank you for getting me back into comics again, and keep up the great work. Thank you, Ryan. And you're in good company, because Tiffany wanted to watch all of Cowboy Bebop while I was doing this show. She was literally like, oh, where's my Bebop? I gotta go watch it. And she's like, oh, it's gonna make noise, and then you come off of the stream, and it'll sound like noise. But yeah. Yeah, man, you're in good company. Bebop's great. Dakota Hoy, or Hoya, says, what Disney Plus Marvel show are you the most excited for? Falcon Winter Soldier. Because I just want to... I'm like, I can't believe you made a show to delay Falcon becoming Captain America. I want to see Falcon as Captain America. Like, get him in the suit. Let's get going, so we can have a new Avengers movie with the new team. So Falcon Winter Soldier is something I'm really looking forward to. I really want to. The one I'm really looking forward to is She-Hulk. I don't know why, but I really like She-Hulk, and I really want to see what they're going to do with that. So it's really She-Hulk. But the one that's coming out, that like they've cast and shot, is the Falcon Winter Soldier one. Michael Darnell, I want a great Daredevil story where he can see and he has to deal with the feelings of inadequacy. There's one that Mark Waid did where there's a cool like arc where Superior Iron Man gives him sight. That's fun. Check that one out. Yeah, that's the one. But check it out. We did see the Vavitch. That's why we saw The Lighthouse, because we knew that Eggers made the Vavitch. But yeah. Hey, we're caught up. That's everybody. That usually means it's time to end the show. But so I'm going to end the show because it's 2 o'clock in the morning. So thank you all so much for hanging out with me. Thank you so much for your incredible questions and for your super chats. Let us know. No, the show's over. And it's unlisted, so you're not going to be able to do comments. But listen, thank you all so much for hanging out with me and for supporting me and for being there with us. We are so lucky to have you. And thanks for coming to these ridiculous late-night streams. I like doing them. I just like making videos for you guys. It just means a lot. I love doing it. So thank you all so much. If you want to see the channel grow and succeed, watch the videos. That's literally it. But if you want to help us out a little more, you can always go to patreon.com/ComicPOP. You get access to stuff, early access to things. We got a little exclusive shows and stuff like that. You really should join the Discord server, though, because it's like the place where people chat. You can literally, like, the people who are chatting with each other right now, you could keep the conversation going right now by going into the Discord and just continuing the conversation. There was a book club that had met to talk about what's it called, Swamp Thing. But go check that out. It's a great conversation. You can keep it going, and if you want to talk about Star Wars, there's a Star Wars chat. If you want to talk about Marvel movies, DC movies, whatever, just go join that out. Oh, the Real Zoop says, which is your favorite cat? I know we love them all, but come on, between you and me, winky face. Oh, no, you don't. Nice try. You'll never get it out of me. I'll never tell you. Or anybody, for that matter. But I do have a favorite. Which one is it? Guess in the comments. But no, hey, listen, if you feel old from using Discord, just think of it as an AOL chat room. Because that's exactly what it is. It's literally just an ongoing chat room. But yeah, listen, that Jim Zub interview, you should check it out. It's a really fun conversation. So watch that, please. That's it. Stick around for more. Please watch what we've got on Wednesday. Invincible. And on the 20th, I think, which is also Wednesday, I may have to fudge things around because I have a special guest who has agreed to do a live interview, so you can ask your questions of hopefully, if it's all working out, JMD Mateus is going to come on the show on a live episode of Elseworlds. The difference is it'll be on Wednesday, so I may have to move Invincible to Tuesday or Thursday, depending. But, yeah. We reserve the right to reject questions, by the way, even if it's a super chat, just out of respect for this man, because it's like, if it's going to be live, I really want it to be like cool. So we're going to have that heavily moderated. But, if you have a question for JMD Mateus, I would come up with one, and then keep an eye out on social media for updates, over on twitter.com/SalSaysWhat, here on the channel. In the community tab, you can find more info there, the Patreon, obviously, the Discord, the Facebook page, both of them, and more. So, yeah, that's it. So, thank you all so much for hanging out with me, and you guys have a great Sunday. Stay well, take care of each other, and I'll see you on Monday when we do another show. So long, everybody. Thanks a lot.